Welcome to the Haunted Mario podcast, where we discuss all things paranormal. You can find the podcast at hauntedmario.com. I also upload the podcast onto YouTube, and again, this is where we discuss all things paranormal. Today's episode, which would be the second episode of the series, we're going to be discussing some of the haunts that we experienced this past weekend in Virginia City, Nevada for Douglas Carnahan's Virginia City Paracon. We got to investigate two locations, the Mackay Mansion and the Fourth Ward School. We did have quite a few experiences, some of which, after reviewing audio now, we've managed to find that we did capture a few EVPs. A couple of Class A's, mostly Class C EVPs, but we did come up with something, as well as three pictures of a what might be a shadow figure that was in a carriage. The evening, it had its highs and lows. There were a lot of moments where there was no activity happening, but the moments that had activity going on were really intense or really pronounced. The Mackay Mansion had some pretty crazy things going on in the gazebo / garden area. And then in the Fourth Ward School, we had quite some activity in the second floor alumni room. Both locations are awesome. Pictures will be on the website at hauntedmario.com. I will be posting the EVPs that we captured, as well as the pictures that we took. Alright, so let's get right into it. Now, the first location that we got to investigate, now, there were two groups, and two very large groups. And within each group, we were divided up into smaller groups. And each group consisted of about 8 people, I would say. Maximum 8 to 10. And then we each got to investigate different areas of the house. And I think we had about 2 hours total to investigate the Mackay Mansion and property. And then another 2 hours for the Fourth Ward School. So we were divided into teams, and we got to investigate with Dawn Staggs. If you remember from my last podcast, Dawn Staggs is a psychic empath and medium, and he was leading us, and I do consider him my sort of paranormal mentor. He's taught me just about everything that I know regarding the paranormal field. And it was definitely an honor to get to investigate with him, one last time. So we started out in the, I guess it would be the first floor main formal living room and the entrance room. Not quite sure what it was. The house is kind of set up awkward as far as the rooms are concerned. But we did some EVP sessions, and we weren't getting much activity. It was some kind of weird feelings between both rooms. One room was colder than the other, but it was at night, so it was probably not paranormal. But in any case, after we finished there, we moved on to the gazebo. I guess it would be the garden area, and then the gazebo. So we walked out to the garden, and to the side of the garden, there's this small area with what appears to be an open, almost like a shed. And inside the shed, there was this old buggy or an old carriage. And in front of it, there was this large sort of barrel wheel, broken barrel wheel. So we're over there, and I have my full spectrum camcorder going, and Don informs me that he is seeing some kind of shadow figure on top of the carriage, which I unfortunately could not see, and I could not pick up while recording with the full spectrum camera, even though I had the camera zoomed in and as best as I could to get that specific area, but I couldn't get anything there. However, after about a minute or two, as we were still standing in front of the carriage, I could see what appeared to be a man inside the carriage, in the back of the carriage, like the back seat, and he was kind of shifting, like from the left seat to the right seat and in the middle, so like trying to stay out of sight in some way, but not entirely, because we could all see him. By all of us, I mean myself and Dawn and this other investigator that was with us. So we're looking in at the carriage, and I see him there, and so I decided to snap 3 pictures in succession with the full spectrum camcorder. Now, my full spectrum camcorder allows me to take pictures in full spectrum vision, so I snapped 3 pictures in succession within about a second of each other, and didn't see anything at the moment, but I know that from what I saw physically, there was someone in there. So high hopes that we would have captured something. And after reviewing the visual evidence, didn't capture anything in video. But when it came to the pictures, in all 3 pictures, you can see the silhouette of the head and shoulders of a man sitting in the back of the carriage. What's compelling about it, not only did I tag it on the video, but I did inform Dawn that that's where I saw him, and that it looked like a male. But when you look at the pictures, you can see, especially on the 3rd picture, you can see the outline of like his ears, his widow's peak on his head from his hair, and you can see sort of the outline of his chin, his nose, and his eyes. And that is by far it's the only visual piece of evidence we captured that night, or just about in any location we've been to, that is, to me, credible enough to consider paranormal evidence. What's also notable about this experience is that no one was allowed back there where the carriage is. I mean, we were in front of the carriage. We didn't actually go back there because we weren't allowed in that area. So we weren't able to go there. There was no one there on the site. The actual lead investigator from the team that was with Douglas Carnahan that night, he was at the gazebo, which we hadn't gone to yet. So yeah, very, very awesome piece of evidence. I'll be posting that to hauntedmario.com under the Paranormal Files tab, so you can look at the picture and judge for yourself if you see a man there. I'll circle the area where I believe we captured the apparition. All right, so after that that occurrence, we sort of finished up by the carriage. Didn't capture anything on EVP since we were running a digital recorder there, and nothing came up as far as EVP for that area. So we moved on and rejoined the main group, and we moved to this area. It's in the garden, and it has this sort of metal round table where the main group was sitting, and they were going to conduct their own EVP session. Now, I was just outside the group, and my wife Cassie had gone over to the gazebo where she was conducting sort of a solo EVP session. So after about a minute into their EVP session, I decided I'm going to go ahead and join my wife at the gazebo and do an EVP session, or see what we can find, capture, discover in that specific area. So it wasn't long after getting into the gazebo that I started to sort of feel this weird, I don't know, it's like an awkward feeling of sort of being unwanted, at least in that area. And at that point, I looked over to the shed that was about 20 feet away from the gazebo. It looks like a tool shed, some kind of tool shed. It had a bunch of ladders stacked on the side. And to my surprise, on the top of the shed, there was this male figure sitting there, observing. And it was weird because he was just there, and it's like he was looking into the garden and gazebo area. And he was wearing these gray, like old-timey gray pants, this wrinkly, buttoned-up shirt, and this type of hat. I don't know what they're called, but they're kind of flat on the top, and they have a very short brim, and they're pinched in the front, and the back is a little puffier. Kind of like an old railroad worker. So, see this dude up there. He's only up there for about, I don't know, 10 seconds before he instantly disappears. And from that point on, every other time I saw him, and this was within about 30 seconds, he would just sort of teleport to different areas, and he would appear as this really tall shadow figure. We're talking like 8 to 9 feet tall, just very daunting looking entity. And I haven't seen too many shadow figures. I have seen a few, most notably at the Graver Olive House. But every time I've seen a shadow figure, I've never really felt anything negative. In this case, when I saw him, I got this overwhelming, threatening feeling. Like he just did not like me at all. And the first place he showed up was on the back of the gazebo. And on the back of the gazebo, there's this sort of bush line that kind of covers the entrance to that area. It's all bushes, but I could see him behind the bushes, and he was just this massive, tall shadow figure. Now, this is weird because I'm seeing this in the dark. This is minimal light, and this is Virginia City. Virginia City is not an urban city. This is, an old western town, mining town from, way back when. And even the lights that are there are not that bright. So every area we're at is pretty dark. And the gazebo area was fairly lit by the lights of the mansion, but not so well lit that you could walk around without a flashlight. So it was dark enough where you could make out silhouettes and shadows. And in this case, this shadow figure showed up in the bush line. Now this guy, I described him as moving like the Flash because he was incredibly fast. So he shows up, goes from the top of the shed to the bush line on the back of the gazebo, and I see him there, and he's there for a few seconds, and I just get this threatening feeling, and then all of a sudden he disappears again, and then he shows up on the right side of the gazebo. And the gazebo is square. It's not round. It's a square gazebo. And he shows up on the right-hand side in between the actual gazebo and where the main group is sitting in the table. And he shows up there, and I feel like he has his eyes on me, just glaring. I can't make out a face, but that's just the feeling that I got. It was this huge feeling, a threatening feeling of like dread. And I didn't know what to do at that point. I'd never experienced anything negative in the paranormal, so this to me was my first negative experience. So he's at on the right hand side of the gazebo, and then all of a sudden he disappears again and again, just teleporting away. And he then shows up and he starts moving around. It looks like he's moving around the table where the main group is sitting and doing their EVP, like observing them, scoping them out. And at that time, someone or the group investigating on the second floor of the Mackay mansion turns on a laser grid. So they had a laser grid up on the second floor. And the Mackay mansion has this balcony that goes and wraps around the entire mansion, second floor of the mansion. So all of a sudden I see the lights reflecting from the windows on the second floor. I instantly see this shadow figure appear on the balcony. So he kind of creeps up to the window and he's kind of looking inside to investigate what these lights are. And that kind of keeps his attention. And at that moment, my wife is still running recordings. And while he's up there, I'm telling her and the lead investigator, this wasn't Don, this is, I forget his name, but he was one of the other lead investigators for that area. And I'm telling him, I don't feel right. This shadow figure that I'm seeing, he doesn't like me at all. I wonder if it's, he just doesn't seem like he likes me in particular. I don't know if it's my beard or if it's, my tattoos. And I kind of get the sense that he just hates my tattoos. And so, if you know me, I have tattoos on my left arm as well as my right arm. But the only one visible, because I was wearing a t-shirt, was the one on my left arm. Or the two on my left arm. So, I get the idea he doesn't like tattoos, and that's why he doesn't like me. And all of a sudden, he reappears at the entrance. I guess this would be the front entrance to the gazebo. And he's just there, and it's this massive shadow figure, and I really can't get a read on him other than he really does not like me. And at some point, he's just kind of moving around the gazebo, almost like circling your prey. It's weird, but that's what I felt like. Like I was prey, and he was like a lion, and he was just circling around the gazebo, getting ready to attack. At some point, it felt like he was right in my face. I didn't see him, but I could feel that energy just right up on me. And at that point, the main group started to finish their EVP session and wrap up over there. At that point, I could see him, and he was behind the bush line again. And I tried to capture him on full spectrum, but I wasn't able to. It was weird because I would see him there, I would flash my flashlight, and there was nothing there. But the moment I would turn it off, you could see his shadow there, like his silhouette. So that was a very intense moment. When I went to review the audio recording, we actually ended up picking up 3 EVPs in the gazebo. So we're going to go ahead and play a couple of those EVPs just so that you can hear what we managed to capture. One of them is of a female voice and the other is of a male voice. These were both captured in the gazebo, and just to let you know that we were very aware that there was another group, there were other groups investigating as well as the other half of our own group, and they were in the garden doing their EVP session, but we could hear them completely. So these voices that came through were not heard at the time. So that they're a bit more compelling, and they're intelligent responses to the questions, or at least the situation that we were in regarding that shadow figure. So I'm going to go ahead and cue these up, and you can listen and discern for yourself what is being said. And then I'll play them a couple of times, and then you can make the decision what you hear. But I'll tell you exactly what I think I'm hearing in relation to what is being said. So I'm going to go ahead and cue those up, and here is the first clip. No, that's the tattoos. No, that's the tattoos. No, that's the tattoos. Okay, so that was the first clip, and as you can hear, I'm referring to my tattoos, and you hear a female whispering voice come through, say something. Now I played the clip 3 times. You can discern what you think you hear from them, but what I'm actually hearing is, or they make him angry. So in context to what I'm discussing about the tattoos and why he doesn't like me, it seems like an intelligent response comes in saying they make him angry. Now that's a pretty awesome EVP in itself, but the one that to me was more awesome is this next EVP that I'm about to play for you. So I'm going to cue that one up. Again, I'm going to play it 3 times, and you can make out what you think you hear the voice saying. Now again, this one is going to be a male voice, so you're listening for a male voice. Here it is. Excuse my language. This guy is like a fucking Flash. Excuse my language. This guy is like a fucking Flash. Excuse my language. This guy is like a fucking Flash. Alright, so there's the second clip, and if you listen closely, after I say what I say, you hear like a deep male voice say, "You keep taunting me." That's what I believe he's saying, and it kind of makes sense because the entire time that we were in the gazebo and I was experiencing this weird shadow figure, I kept commenting on how on how fast he is, that he was moving like the Flash. It was just super quick. And so when I said that, it seems like I struck a chord because he said, "You keep taunting me." So again, that to me is my favorite EVP of the night. But I do have an even better EVP, but that we ended up capturing that evening. However, this one was not captured at the Mackay Mansion. This was captured at the Fourth Ward School. But before we get to that one, I do have a third EVP. This one was captured at the Mackay Mansion, and this one was captured in the room that is next to or connected to John Mackay's room. Now within this room there's just a bed, a little sofa, and a small crib, and we ended up setting up 2 digital voice recorders. One I put in the crib, which was in the room, and the other was placed near or next to my wife. And so we're conducting EVP, and a question is asked at some point during that EVP session, and we hear this sort of female voice scream the word "no." Now I'm telling you what is being said, but you can hear it clearly that it's a no, and it's a female voice screaming it. Now this scream came out of nowhere. We didn't hear it at the time. It wasn't any of the other groups that were investigating that evening, and the sound didn't come from outside either. So that was a very just weird, anomalous, disembodied voice that came through. Now, generally, a disembodied voice you can hear audibly, but in this case, it was an EVP. And what's even better about it is the only recorder that caught it was my wife's recorder, which was nearer to her. The one that was in the crib that I had set up did not capture it. So we're going to go ahead and play the clip here, and just listen. Immediately after the question is asked, you'll hear the screaming voice. Who stayed in this room? Who stayed in this room? Who stayed in this room? So again, very interesting EVP. That was everything that we ended up capturing in the Mackay mansion. At that point, we sort of finished up the investigation, and we headed over to the next location, which was the 4th Ward School. Now, the 4th Ward School had some interesting activity in the alumni room and the Mark Twain room, which were both on the 2nd floor. And these were the rooms that we encountered activity. We didn't end up investigating the entire 4th Ward School like we had originally planned to, but we did investigate 3 main areas, and in these 2 we had some weird activity. In the alumni room, we did have this feeling like there was this really mean teacher that used to instruct there, and she just did not like children. And I had set up my recorder on an old desk, almost in the corner of the far end corner of the room. Toward the end of the investigation inside that room, we ended up capturing an EVP that is probably one of the clearest Class A EVPs I've heard. And I'm not going to tell you what is being said because it's very obvious what is being spoken. So at this point, it was myself and Stefan Bergotti. You might know him from My Darkest Hour paranormal podcast show, and you can check him out on liveparanormal.com. His show is on every Thursday night, and great topics discussed there. He's talked to many important people in the paranormal field. So anyway, he and I were discussing this teacher weird apparition that we were seeing, and while we're talking, you hear this voice come through. So I'm going to play the clip now. Again, I'll play it 3 times, and you can most definitely make out what is being said. It's a whispered voice, and it's very clear. So here's that clip.
Yeah. Well, when I walked over here, I felt something like it was staring at me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I walked over here, I felt something like it was staring at me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I walked over here, I felt something like it was staring at me. Yeah.
And there you have it. Incredible EVP. Certainly a Class A, very clearly saying, "Help my God." Now, it sounded like a male voice whispering. Very weird. We didn't hear it at the time, and my wife and the other investigators that were in that room were being loud enough that we could hear them, and at that point we were getting ready to head out of the room. This is just seconds before I ended up picking up the recorder and shutting it off. So great EVP capture right at the end. Probably one of the best EVPs I've ever captured. But yeah, that basically wraps it up. We did end up capturing a couple of other Class C EVPs that evening. Those are not as loud or pronounced, so those are difficult to hear, so I chose not to feature those on this podcast episode. But okay, so that basically does it for this podcast episode. I do have 2 events that I'll be heading out to, one this weekend and the other the following weekend, both of them at the haunted Glen Tavern Inn here in Southern California. So that's our return to that location. The first will be a Face Your Fears event with Haunted Orange County and Chad Lindberg. You might know Chad Lindberg from the show Ghost Stalkers. And joining us with that event will also be Brandon Alvis from APRA. So I'll be doing 2 podcasts, one for the Face Your Fears event at the Glen Tavern Inn, and then I'll be doing a 4th episode for the second event at the Glen Tavern Inn. This will be the Pioneers of the Paranormal event. It's just a big conference from a lot of people in the paranormal field that will be able to investigate the 3rd floor of the Glen Tavern Inn. So exciting things coming, and once I've done evidence reviews and if I come up with anything, I'll go ahead and feature those on the next couple of podcast episodes. Again, if you're interested in any haunted tours or paranormal investigations, check out hauntedoc.com. And if you want to check out my site is hauntedmario.com. I'll have those EVPs posted up on there within the next day or two, and as well as the pictures that we managed to capture that shadow figure in the carriage. If you also want to check out my YouTube channel, again, that is posted in a link at the top menu of the Haunted Mario website. And go ahead and check that out for some of the other evidence we've captured within the last 2 years of our investigations. So Virginia City Paracon, big thank you to Douglas Carnahan and his team, Scott Grunwald, Don Staggs, Brandon Alvis were all there, a bunch of other speakers, Stefan Brigatti. It was a great event, great opportunity, glad we went. We ended up capturing incredible EVPs. So until next time, again, love to give you insight on the paranormal and everything that we've experienced. So we'll meet up again on the Haunted Mario podcast, and until then, happy hauntings.